It is October 218 BC. A man stands at the foot of the Alps. Behind him, 90,000 soldiers and 37 war elephants. Ahead of him, the highest mountain range in Europe, in winter, with no roads, no maps, no supply lines. His generals tell him it cannot be done. He gives the order anyway. His name is Hannibal Barca, and what he is about to do will be called the greatest military march in human history. Rome has no idea he is coming. Hannibal Barca, the man Rome feared more than any enemy it had ever faced. A general so brilliant that military academies still study his tactics today. More than 2,000 years later, he will cross the Alps. He will descend into Italy. He will hand Rome the worst defeat in its entire history, and then he will never take the city. Why? By the end of this video, you will understand why 218 is not just the year of the most audacious military march in history. It is the year that almost ended Rome, and the year that proved Rome could not be ended. The vault is open. To understand what Hannibal is doing at the foot of the Alps, you have to understand what Carthage was and what Rome had already done to it. Carthage, a great North African city-state on the coast of modern Tunisia, one of the most powerful trading empires in the Mediterranean world, rich, sophisticated, naval. For centuries, Carthage and Rome had circled each other, two great powers that both understood only one of them could ultimately survive. The First Punic War had ended in 241 BC with Carthage defeated. Rome had taken Sicily. Carthage had paid an enormous war indemnity. The humiliation was total. Hannibal Barca, Hannibal's father, never accepted it. He brought his 9-year-old son to the altar before his next campaign and asked him a question. "Do you want to come with me?" Hannibal said yes. Hamilcar told him, "Then swear on this altar that you will be Rome's enemy as long as you live." Hannibal swore. He kept that oath for the rest of his life. By 221 BC, Hamilcar was dead, and Hannibal, now 26 years old, commanded the Carthaginian army in Spain. He was already a legend to his soldiers. He ate what they ate. He slept on the ground beside them. He was first into battle and last to leave. And he had a plan for Rome that nobody in the ancient world had ever attempted. The plan was this. Rome expected any attack to come from the sea, from Carthage across the Mediterranean. The Roman navy controlled those waters. Any Carthaginian fleet would be intercepted. Hannibal would not come by sea. He would come overland, through Spain, through southern Gaul, modern France, across the Rhone River, and then, impossibly, over the Alps. He would attack Rome from the north, from the direction no army had ever come from the direction nobody was watching. In the spring of 218 BC, Hannibal left Cartagena in Spain with 90,000 infantry, 12,000 cavalry, and 37 African war elephants. By the time he reached the Alps, disease, battle, and desertion had reduced his force to roughly 38,000 infantry and 8,000 cavalry. He had already lost half his army, and he had not yet faced Rome in a single battle. The elephants were still alive, for now. The Alpine crossing took 15 days. 15 days in October, which in the Alps means early snow, ice on the passes, freezing temperatures at night, narrow paths along cliff edges with nothing below but open air. The local tribes attacked from above, rolling boulders down onto the column. Soldiers lost their footing on icy paths and fell into the gorges below. Pack animals carrying food and supplies tumbled off the edges. Equipment was abandoned. Men who fell behind were never found again. Hannibal rode among his troops constantly, talking to them, showing them what lay ahead, stopping at high passes and pointing north into Italy, telling them that what they could see from here was not just the Po Valley. It was Rome. On the 9th day, a massive rockfall blocked the only pass forward. The path ahead was completely buried. There was no way around it. Hannibal's engineers studied the problem. They built fires against the rock face, massive fires burning through the night, and then poured vinegar over the heated stone, causing it to crack and fracture. They broke the mountain with fire and acid. The army moved forward, but the elephants were dying. The elephants were not built for mountains. African bush elephants in winter snow, animals from the heat of North Africa, forced through ice and altitude and starvation. They stumbled on the narrow paths. They panicked on the cliff edges. Several fell. Several were simply too weak to continue and were left behind in the snow. When Hannibal descended into northern Italy in November of 218 BC, he had lost more than half his entire army. He had started with 90,000 soldiers. He arrived with roughly 20,000 infantry and 6,000 cavalry, and 1 elephant. Some accounts say a few more survived, but most were gone. The great weapon of the Carthaginian army, the psychological terror that Hannibal had counted on to break Roman formations, mostly dead in the snow. Rome's scouts finally reported what was happening. A Carthaginian general had crossed the Alps, in winter, with what remained of his army. The Roman Senate was not frightened. A beaten, frozen, half-starved force of 20,000 men against the full military power of Rome. They sent 2 consular armies to deal with him. They had made the worst miscalculation in the history of the Republic. Hannibal beat the first Roman army at the Trebia River in December 218 BC. He beat the second at Lake Trasimene in 217 BC, an ambush so complete that 15,000 Roman soldiers died in the first 3 hours. Some fled into the lake and drowned in their armor. The locals say the lake ran red. Rome panicked. They appointed a dictator, Quintus Fabius Maximus, whose strategy was simple. Do not fight Hannibal in open battle. Shadow him. Cut his supply lines. Wear him down without engaging. The strategy worked slowly. Too slowly for Rome's patience. The Roman people hated it. They called Fabius the delayer, a coward who let Hannibal burn the Italian countryside while Rome did nothing. So Rome did something that would prove catastrophic. In 216 BC, they assembled the largest army in the Republic's history, 86,000 soldiers, and sent them south to destroy Hannibal once and for all. They found him near a small village on the Adriatic coast. The village was called Cannae. The Battle of Cannae on August 2nd, 216 BC is still studied in every military academy in the world. Not because of its scale, but because of what Hannibal did. He was outnumbered almost 2 to 1. 86,000 Romans against roughly 50,000 Carthaginians and allies. He placed his weakest troops, the Gauls and Spanish infantry, at the center of his line, bulging forward toward the Romans. His best troops, the African veterans, he placed on both flanks, hidden. The Romans did what Roman armies always did. They pushed forward hard into the center, driving the weaker Gauls back. The Roman soldiers compressed inward, pushing deeper, certain they were winning. Hannibal had designed this. As the Romans pushed deeper into the center, Hannibal's African veterans on both flanks turned inward, pivoting simultaneously, and enclosed the Roman army from both sides. Then the Carthaginian cavalry sealed the rear. The Romans were surrounded, completely, in the open field, with no room to use their weapons. 70,000 Roman soldiers were killed in a single afternoon. 70,000 in 6 hours. It remains one of the highest single-day death tolls in military history. The road to Rome was open. Hannibal's cavalry commander rode to him after the battle. His name was Hannibal. He told Hannibal, "Give me the cavalry. In 5 days, I will bring you Rome." Hannibal said no, he needed to rest his army, to resupply, to wait for Carthage to send reinforcements. Hannibal looked at him and said the words that ancient historians would argue about for centuries. "You know how to win a victory, Hannibal. You do not know how to use one." Carthage never sent the reinforcements. The city council had not believed the Alpine crossing would succeed. They had not planned for what came after. Hannibal remained in Italy for 15 years. 15 years, marching through the peninsula, winning every battle he fought, never losing in open combat, but never taking Rome. Rome rebuilt its army, appointed new generals, adopted the Fabian strategy that its people had once called cowardice. And then Rome did something Hannibal had not anticipated. Rather than defending Italy, a young Roman general named Scipio Africanus took a Roman army directly to North Africa, to the walls of Carthage itself. Hannibal was recalled from Italy to defend his home city. At the Battle of Zama in 202 BC, 16 years after the Alps, Scipio defeated Hannibal, the only defeat of Hannibal's career in open battle. Hannibal spent his remaining years in exile, moving from court to court across the Mediterranean as Rome hunted him. When Roman soldiers finally surrounded his last refuge, he took poison from a ring he wore for exactly this purpose. He was approximately 65 years old. His last recorded words were said to be, "Let us relieve the Romans of their long anxiety." Rome did not celebrate. His greatest enemy was gone, but the man who had almost destroyed them had spent his final years alone, hunted, exiled, far from Carthage. 40 years after Hannibal's death, Rome finally destroyed Carthage completely, burned it to the ground, salted the earth so nothing would grow. 218, the year a man led elephants over the Alps in winter and handed Rome the worst defeat in its history. The year Rome learned it could survive anything. The year that made Rome an empire. 218. Hannibal crossed the Alps with 90,000 soldiers and 37 elephants. He arrived in Italy with 20,000 men and almost no elephants. He won every battle for 15 years. He never took the city, the greatest general who never won his war. History remembers him as a villain in Roman accounts and a hero in Carthaginian ones. But Carthage was destroyed, so we have almost no Carthaginian accounts left. History is written by the survivors. If this story made you think, leave a comment. Could Hannibal have taken Rome after Cannae? Was Hannibal right? Subscribe to the Vault of Numbers. Every week, one number, one story history forgot to tell you. The next number in the vault? A library stood in Egypt for 700 years. It contained every book ever written. Then, one afternoon, it was gone. The vault remains open.